Ladder League fans, we are, quite frankly, the backest that anyone has ever been. Season 3 is here. Signups closed. We have a whopping 28 runners in this year's tournament. This is the most in any TCS tournament ever. And for good reason. Everyone wants to go to the in person playoffs in beautiful Indianapolis, Indiana. I'm just super excited for the in-person playoffs. I mean, just getting to commentate races in person, to meet everyone, to really just see everyone out of their environment in a new place. How do they do facing their opponent, 2 feet away from them in front of their screen? It's gonna be super unique. I'm just so excited for the playoffs and everything to come together right there. But it's not just the playoffs to be excited about here. As the producers and organizers, we have poured over everything, everything in the stream and the viewer experience to just make it as good as possible. We have new graphics, we have original music, we have a website, new prediction format, new win probability model, and hopefully just everything is just going to run so much smoother this year. But with all these changes to the stream and the viewer experience, we've also made some changes to the format, most notably with the wild card. We noticed last year that Dragon got this 223 very early in the tournament, and while I really did think someone was going to beat that, when it gets to week 5, week 6, and nobody has, you start to realize that Dragon can just kind of coast. He doesn't need to perform, even though these should be the most exciting races of the tournament. When it gets to, that week 7 race especially, that should be, the race of the ladder, the defining race. Everything is down to this race, but for him, the only way he didn't make playoffs was if Laser and T-Fresh both beat his 223. And it's a year later, T-Fresh still hasn't finished that run. It's not very fast. And of course, he was never going to get a 223 if it's, hasn't even finished in 10 months. So, we have the situation where Dragon doesn't need to win in that race. So we have made a change to where getting the wildcard time is no longer a free ticket to playoffs. Instead, there will be a matchup between the player with the best run and the best average. And they're going to face off. If that's the same person has the best run and the best average, it'll be the second best average that'll face them in this wildcard match. And this is a true do or die. Winner gets to go to the most exciting event in TCS history. The loser just has to stay home. With this new format, every matchup, especially every rung 1 matchup, is just going to mean so much. The value of a rung 1 itself is elevated by the fact that that's the only way to get the free qualification. The other, if you get there in the wild card, you still got to win another race against another great player. And taking into account the best average is also going to make just every race matter. No more disasters. Like if you get a 230 something and your PB is a 221, that is awful, and that's going to tank your chances really hard. So the consistency is going to matter. Every race is going to matter for these bubble runners. And that wild card race as well that it creates should just be some of the best content we have. And I also say the new format is good in any situation, but I think especially this year we have a possible development where we have a very clear top 8 runners. And I'm giving Justin some credit here. His PB isn't quite there with the rest of them in that top 8, but we know how good Wii Super is. He is the Terminator. He is immortal in this game. He's going to come back D-Rust faster than anyone and, get up in that group, I think, with the rest of the top 8. That's really my belief. And then we're going to have this really big gap between 8 and 9. And if that materializes and nobody kind of crosses over, we're down to really 2 options. One is that one of these lower runners, creates chaos. They qualify, get a spot, and now one of these top 8 runners isn't going to playoffs. And just think of the drama from that, right? The wild card match between, if it's Justin versus Anorak, the 2 of these great runners that we think should definitely make it. One of them wouldn't. But the other option, the less chaos option, still means that we have 8 runners, and one of them is not going to get a direct spot. One of them is going to have to be in the wildcard match. But then we have the runners below them, and one of them gets to be in the wildcard match. Right. So for both groups, there's a little bit more to play for because there's just that extra third, in the middle category that you can fight for. And I think it'll be the narrative of the latter stage is like who from the top is going to be in that match, but and then who from the middle of the ladder gets to be in that match. And it's just going to be very interesting. Like, two people are going to be in there probably with very different outlooks on how they got there and how happy they are to be there and what it would mean to them to get to playoffs. For me, I think that'll be the number one story to watch in the ladder stage. Now, with all that said, this is not a week one preview. This is not a ladder preview video. We are focused on the other big format change, the qualifier. Introducing the last chance qualifier. 13 runners enter, 6 make it to the ladder. 7 of them, the majority of runners in the LCQ this weekend, will go home empty handed. Now, the format is very simple. We have a race on Saturday and a race on Sunday. Top 3 in the race on Saturday get to play in rung 6. Top 3 in the race on Sunday join rung 7. There are only 7 rungs, 21 total. Everyone else, if you don't finish top 3 in either race, you are out. Now, this sets up a very different dynamic between the two races. In that first one, you get runners that have ambitions of really going far. People like Charzite and Coolison that have been a staple of previous ladders have to fight in this race, and they don't want to start in that elimination rung. It's still just as punishing as it was last year to be in there. So for these runners, you want to get in rung 6 where you have chance to breathe a little bit and guarantee yourself at least a second week in the ladder. Now, for the runners below that Sunday race is really their target when we get 3 of these better runners out of here. And now this is your one do or die chance to make it to the ladder league at all. And there's a lot of people that I think are playing and derusting expecting to make it, but there's not room for all of them. So somebody's going to be very disappointed in that Sunday race. I think that'll be quite a lot of drama right there. And that's really what I want to focus on is these 13 runners because 7 of them we won't see again. And we'll begin with the highest seed in the LCQ, 16 seed overall. It's Charzite, who has been an absolute staple of ladder league in general so far, finishing 16th in season 1, 12th in season 2, 10 total ladder league races, 5 each year. Charzite is known for making these really long runs, but the competition is as stiff as ever this time. We'll see if he can come through again. Now, Charzite is a really good runner, and I think what I worry about with him, though, is that he might be a little too streaky. I don't know if the race consistency is quite there. He has a 40-39 best episode 2 exit, which is really good for his level. He has a 226 PB. That episode 2 exit is on pace for like a 221 maybe. Like, he has the ability, especially in the early game, to just play super well, and I would not be surprised to see him get a huge lead in the LCQ. But I'm not convinced that he's going to be able to maintain it. We'll have to see. I think Charzite is in a good position, obviously, as the top seed, but, it's a really an open question still. Can he get that rung 6 spot? We'll have to see. Now, moving on to Coolison, 17 seed. He made his tournament debut last year in the ladder league, finished 13th in season 2. A small underperformance of his seed. He came in as the 11th seed. There were just a couple of races for Coolison that were not good last year. I think he's going to be a lot stronger this year, though. I think the experience of being in the tournament last year is going to prove quite helpful. We'll have to see. I don't think he's played a ton in the intervening time, so I can't say this with certainty, but I think he at least is going to benefit a lot from having that experience before, unlike some of the runners below him. So I think he comes in a pretty strong position. He has PB potential. He can move up if he gets into the ladder. We'll see what he does. And in the 18th seed, the last runner projected to get into the 6th rung, that is Mellowbro. Now, he is another one. He came onto the scene during last year's ladder league, but just not quite early enough to join it. But he's been around. He's been like a commentator and stuff. So I think he has a very good understanding of the game. He's shown, an ability to grind and improve. He just got this 227.04 very recently, and that puts him really on the level of Charizard and Coolison PB wise. I think he's, another favorite in the LCQ for sure. His PB says it. I think his PB is very representative of where he is, and I think he has potential to keep pushing it. The one question for Mellowbro is we don't know for certain that he's going to be available for both LCQ dates. It would be really bad if he had to miss Sunday, because certainly that's sort of his fallback option. Like, if he doesn't make it into rung 6, he should be a massive favorite to get in on Sunday. If he can't make that race, then that turns that Saturday race into an incredibly dramatic affair for him. Moving on to our number 19 seed, we have Gamer Olive, who made her debut in TCS tournaments last year with the Ladder League, finishing 21st, which is last place from the actual ladder, but that doesn't capture the actual run she had to go on, starting from like a play-in to a play-in match, winning 2 in a row, pulling off a bit of an upset to even make it to the ladder. It's pretty impressive. And at that point, she was very new. And in the time since then, especially this last month where she's really been, focusing on TCS, we've seen another pretty good improvement to get to this 228 time. Olive is honestly someone I'm pretty excited about because we've seen her do it in tournaments. She had good times, relative to her skill level in all of those races last year, and now we're seeing the PB improvements start to come. We talk a lot about with someone like Frostbite and how fast he was able to make it to the very top. We talk about how having speedrunning experience in other games can help translate, even if those games have nothing to do with TCS mechanically. Just knowing how to improve at speedrunning in general can be super helpful when you come to a new game. And this is why I want to highlight Gamer Olive having a 34-minute Celeste PB. That's not like world class in that game, but like I've run that game. That's better than my PB for sure. Like, that's a pretty solid time, and it takes some effort to get. And I think that effort can start to translate over to TCS, and that's why she's been able to improve pretty quickly and make it into the same level as some of those last couple I talked about that are more like, ladder league mainstays that have been playing the game much longer than she has, or at least have a lot more hours than her. I think Gamer Olive is positioned to do very well here and is like a really serious threat to upset one of those 3 runners above her and make it into the rung 6. Moving on now to the number 20 seed, then Zoda, who has been really a staple of the TCS community for a while, a very, prominent, notable figure, I would say. And he always comes back around tourney time, it seems. He played in even a pre-Ladder League tournament, the third and final pre-Ladder League tournament. He was pretty new at that point, didn't do that well, but we've seen improvement come through, and he was able to qualify for both ladder leagues, finishing 19th both times, which, a pretty respectable performance. He always puts on a show. He always goes for some pretty crazy strats. But I think we might see a little bit less of that this year. It seems like he is kind of, ditching the meme strats, really trying to take the game a bit more seriously. And it's shown so far, getting his PB down from a 235 to a 231 in just a couple of weeks. It's clear that he can go farther. Sub 230 is something he'll probably have sub 230 before the LCQ actually starts. So, Zoda, very, experienced runner. I think this is going to be the best form of him we see this weekend. Now, next up is the runner who I am just absolutely baffled by. That is Y2, the number 21 seed, who has a 232.25. Apparently, he's only done 3 runs ever, and he's a 232. His first run was a 241. I can't. What kind of practice did he have to do for that to be possible? It doesn't make any sense at all. Like, he joined the TCS Discord a year ago, had no messages for a year, and then just posts a stream doing my first run. That run is a 241. Like, I don't know what to say. Like, I haven't really watched much of his gameplay. I don't know anything about him, but he's I can't not take like incredibly strong notice of the insane improvement. So I'm excited to like see him play in the tournament, just to like figure out like how does he do it? Who is he? Like, where did this guy come from? It's really impressive though. I'll say that. Now this next runner, I do know where he came from. He's been around here for even longer than I have. We have Chess Whiz. He He's someone who has gotten as far as fourth place on PC leaderboards, and he played in the very first tournament, got fourth place in that as well. Got top 8 in the third pre-ladder league tournament. He's But that was sort of the last we saw of him. He hasn't been around in a long time. When he got his PB, it was done RTA. I'm pretty sure we didn't even have the load remover yet. So it's incredible to see him come back after all these years to try to play in this tournament. Right now he hasn't PB'd yet. He's only done one attempt, which didn't go the best. I know he wanted to get like sub 230 first run back, and I think with the practice times he's been putting up, that's not unrealistic. But it's just gonna take, sometimes it just takes a couple of runs to get in the flow of things, to kind of get the jitters out, and also just kind of you get to the experience. When you practice, you're playing the same level over and over. It's a very different thing than needing to like play all 36 levels. You've been running for 2 hours, and now you have to play this level that by definition haven't been able to play for the last 2 hours because it's 2 hours into a run, that kind of thing. I think Chess is going to be okay. There's just so many strats not in his PB. When he was at his peak, he was one of the best in the world. I don't think he quite, I don't think he gets top 4 or anything, but I think a week from now when he actually does this race, he's going to have that sub 230, and he's going to be a very strong candidate to qualify for this tournament. Now, he is seeded 22. That puts him as the first runner outside of the ladder. It really feels like at this point there's like 22 runners that like have a very strong case to be in the tournament. Somebody's going to get left out, and I don't know who it's going to be. Now, next up we have Nolan at the 23 seed. Another player who has played in both ladder league tournaments. Snuck into the first one. He was the 24 seed in that tournament, ended up surviving a couple weeks, getting a 21st place finish, overperforming his seed. Not quite the same story in the second ladder league, where I think he just didn't really get a chance to de-rust before his play-in match, which he ended up losing, not making it into the main ladder. But we've definitely seen him, get de-rusted this time. He's improved his PB by about 5 minutes, I think, to get this 235. Nolan, he's played all kinds of other LEGO games. He definitely knows what he's doing. He's going to be, a pretty strong competitor. I think he can, like these other guys, I think he can get a couple minutes off his PB and then start to be a threat in that Sunday race. And now, next up, in the 24 seed, we have a runner who has played in both ladder leagues and has held 8 NE% TCS solo world records on mobile. It's Appleman. Now, I mentioned he played in both ladder leagues. He has not actually made a ladder stage yet. He finished 25th in both tournaments. That is, an exit in the play-ins both times. I know Season 1, I remember that race very well, where he had that crash in DSE. A really sad moment because he was on a great pace there. Coming up this time, though, I think the problem with Appleman has been that he knows mobile strats, and he's doing like one-player spiderless. But that is something he seems to have finally started to like get out of his system. He's like learning. He got the new tutorial. He's learning like the proper 2-player setups for a lot of stuff, and that's seen him improve his PB a ton. I mean, Appleman, we know he can play the game well, and like in one-player environments can move very fast, can get tricks. So I think there is a lot of potential to see Appleman's PB fall, and possibly, again, if Appleman can get that PB improvement over the next week, then that Sunday race becomes important. It's sort of the preceding week of improvement is like just as important as the race itself, I feel, for someone like Apple. And that's also the case for our next runner, Captain Paxo in the 25, who is not most known for TCS among LEGO runners. Of course, he has the record in 1 through 4 NE%. He has done a grunt percent run. He got second place in Hobbit Ladder League. Wide array of LEGO speedrunning accomplishments. And especially like 1 through 4, that's a very 1P2C heavy game. It's not shocking to see that kind of thing carry over. Now, his PB right now is at 237. That, I believe he has not done a single attempt this year, but he's done a lot of practice. And from what I've been hearing from top runners watching his stream, seeing the times he gets, they are like at a sub 230 level, possibly. I think Paxo, has a ton of potential. I mean, again, this next week, the runs he does in this week, getting that run experience under him is going to be just as important as the race. But if he can get his time down and really reach that like borderline sub 230 potential, suddenly he is just as in it as like Zoda, Y2, Chess are. Um, but we have to see the runs first. It'll be, his stream is definitely one to keep an eye on if you're really tracking this LCQ. Moving on now to the 26 seed, Doubt Gaming, another very new runner to TCS. He did his first run on March 28th, just over a month ago, but it was a sub 3. And if we don't see a lot of first run sub 3, it's a pretty rare thing. And we've seen some pretty quick improvement getting all the way, in that month already at sub 240. I think there's a lot more room to go. I question if it will be enough to really match. I've been saying every runner has potential. Eventually, only 6 of these runners are going to make it in. I think it's going to be a very uphill battle for Doubt, but it is possible. He needs to keep improving, but he can do it, I really think. Moving on to our 27th seed, it's going to be Chroma Q, who played in last year's Ladder League, got eliminated in the play-ins, coming back to try to make it farther. But I really think at this 242 PB, it's just going to it's going to be hard. And I don't know if there's been behind-the-scenes practice and improvement. That's always possible. Again, like if we see a big PB, I could wake up tomorrow and see PB by like 5 minutes, and like now we're on, right? At this time range, a 5-minute PB is like impressive and big deal, but like it's not impossible ever. That kind of improvement does happen, but we're gonna need to see him really kick into gear if he wants a chance in this race. And I feel very similarly about our final runner, Staunch, who has kind of been on the fringes of the community, done a couple of runs here and there, been in chats and stuff, but really kind of leaned in a little bit, focused up to qualify for Ladder League, just snuck in with that 244, barely under the 245 sign-up requirement. And I'm glad to see he got that time and he was able to participate. But again, I have real questions about his ability to compete with runners that are pushing, sub 230. I think that time difference is just too big unless we see a really big improvement. But sadly, from what I've heard, I think he's been a bit busy these last couple weeks, was barely even able to make it. I think we just got to say he's a bit happy to be here, but there's always room to prove me wrong. And yeah, those are our 13 LCQ runners. It's a lot to go over. A lot of players with really great potential here. There's so many unique storylines down here. At the top, you get a lot of just like, this guy's been playing the game for 5 years and he's really good at it. But down here, you get a huge mix of like, Y2 has done like 3 runs. Chess started playing 6 years ago. More than that, actually. And now they're like, have very similar times and facing off right on the bubble. It's really weird. And you get just a lot of unique strats, unique histories, unique perspectives down here. And I think that's going to lead to some very exciting races and just some very dynamic, a very dynamic lead up to the LCQ in the next week. The PB potential is massive down here. We can see a lot of huge swings, completely invalidating what I've said. But yeah, I mean that's the fun of it, right? If I'm glad I don't know what's going to happen because that just makes it fun. Now, the official prediction game will not be including the LCQs. We will open the predictions up after the LCQ for week 1 and some other longer term picks. Look out for that. But I will give at least my informal predictions on what's going to happen in the LCQ. And we'll start on Saturday, where I think in the interest of making things a little bit fun here, I'm not just going to pick the top 3. I'll say that Gamer Olive from the 4th LCQ runner outperforms her seed and makes it into rung 6. I talked about the race performance and the PB improvement. It's been there. I think Gamer Olive has a really good shot of knocking someone out of rung 6. As for who that will be, I haven't really decided yet. I do think Melovro is a good pick here also. Remember, it's a race. We want consistency. I feel like Melovro has that a bit more than the other two. Certainly, Charizite and Coolison have a very good top speed they can go and potential to just blow the doors off the competition. but I think we've also seen, really bad races from them in the past, and yeah, I just wonder if that might, we might see that side of them on the day, and you don't know what's going to happen. I think Melivro is going to be a bit more consistent. And for this last spot, I'm picking between Coolison and Charizard. I think they are pretty similar. We've seen them kind of running on and off this year, not quite so steadily. We haven't seen massive PB jumps or anything. Both of them have played in past ladder leagues. I think I'm going to go for Coolison. Coolison is going to benefit from a year of experience under his belt in the TCS tournaments, and I think we're going to see him just put together a much better form this year. I'm willing to back him. I'm willing to believe that he can do pretty well here. So that does mean I'm leaving Charizard out here, and I don't actually mean anything personal against Charizard, but I just wanted to, spice things up a little bit. Partially just arbitrary picks. Certainly any of these top four are in a pretty good spot, but one of them has to get left out. And yeah, that brings me to my Sunday predictions, and I will say Charizard makes it on Sunday, gets into rung 7, has a really good chance in that spot to maybe leapfrog out of the rung, but that is, getting ahead of ourselves here. And these last two spots are just really tough. I want to say that Chess is going to do it. I think he has just so many new strats he can add once he fully gets derusted and also gets into the rhythm of running the game. He's going to improve massively and might even get, closer to those top few, that rung 6 competition, than he is the other runners around him right now. Yeah. Yeah, I'm going to say Chess for that second slot, and that last slot, it's going to come basically down to Y2 or Zoda. And honestly, I'm not making a very informed pick here because I don't know anything about Y2 or his consistency. But I know Zoda's pretty strong and he has the better PB. It's tough to leave somebody out here. I really, I wish we could expand the league to 22 just to fit these guys in. I think I'm gonna take the swing here on Y2, just because I'm so baffled and just his incomprehensible rise. I just feel like you can't bet against him after the insane start that he's had to his career. I don't know, but I don't want to leave Zoda out. I think Zoda probably makes the tournament, but we'll have to see. Maybe Zoda's in New Zealand. Maybe the time zone gets to him. Certainly, we're not putting this race at a very good time zone for him, which is just unfortunate. But someone has to get the short end of that stick. Yeah, that's gonna be my informal prediction here. We'll see how I do. Yeah, I mean, other runners that I didn't really mention in that prediction segment also have a chance. We'll see what especially Paxo is. I'm gonna have my eye on him. He might be just as much in this conversation as those others. There's my prediction, and I honestly don't think it'll be right, and I can't wait to see how I'm proven wrong. This next week, and especially next weekend, are just so exciting. They cannot come soon enough. We're going to have just, months ahead of us of really exciting TCS to watch. I haven't even mentioned the top 15 runners who are, those are the big names we all know. We've seen some really big swings in the top 7 and a couple of other PBs in the 222 range that have really changed my perspective on the top of the ladder. And I think there's room for something very similar to happen at the bottom before the LCQ, that just someone gets a big PB and just completely scrambles what I thought was going to happen. I don't know. I mean, you just have to watch to find out. Saturday 1 p.m. Eastern, Sunday 1 p.m. Eastern, and then all around, all over the week, every week after for 7 weeks. And then of course, July playoffs, Indianapolis in person. It doesn't get any better than this. There's not much else to say. I am excited. I know so many other people watching must be as excited as I am. It's just going to be great. Thank you all for watching this, and I will see you in the next one, previewing week 1, talking about these LCQ races. It's just going to be a fucking blast.